Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Eric's UK. And it wouldn't be Halloween without a Halloween style video. I say that, not having probably done one for a while. I had planned to do a couple of videos today on games, horror games and so on, but real life kind of got in the way. Nothing bad, just, lack of time. But I thought, why not? Let's start with something. I might do the others over the next couple of days, a bit of a late Halloweeny. And today's game I have played is called Zombie Apocalypse. It was part of a 4-part series. I believe it was an Italian game system originally. White Wolf Game Studios got the license to print it in English. And this is probably going back about, I don't know, late 00s, maybe around about 2010, maybe 2011. And there was a series of 4. You had Zombie Apocalypse, Rise of the Machines, Wrath of the Gods, and Alien Invasion, I believe were the titles. And each one dealt with a different apocalypse. Zombies, the old AI Terminator machine rise up. Alien Invasion, obviously. And the other one had a variety where it could be like the Return of the Norse Gods with like Ragnarok. You had your Call of Cthulhu style, the old ones coming back and so on. And the game was designed to be one where players played themselves. It was kind of intrinsically built into the system. Everyone would sit down. It was a sort of a point-based generation. I forget exactly how the system worked or how the actual game mechanics worked. But the idea was you sat everybody down and they tried to create themselves using the mechanics of the creation system. But when they'd done that, everybody had to agree that they'd done the stats right. Otherwise, they had to adjust them. You can't make yourself a football star and be this if you're like me and you like your pizzas too much and your stats aren't going to be that high. You had to try and create yourself as accurately as possible. I think it was a little off on that because I think it was like a 5-point stat system, and you can't really do that in that system. You just go right, 3's the average, 4, 5 is world class. Because some people go, well, you're more average than 4, and some people go, well, actually no, I would say I'm more 4 than 3, and I think the skill system was a little lacking as well, from what I recall. You could never, for a game that wants you to accurately play yourself, it didn't really give you. I mean, we're none of us are Hollywood action movie styles. We'd all probably die in a zombie apocalypse, but I kind of felt it didn't give you enough leeway with the skills. But we gave it a try. I think we only did like 2 sessions of it. And I remember everybody made them themselves, and I set it in our hometown here, and the surrounding areas, and I basically started it with whatever the cause of the zombie apocalypse was. I don't really remember. I remember I looked up a load of stuff online about how a zombie apocalypse might spread if it was like a virus-based thing, starting with hospitals, and it only takes one person, that person infects another one, then you infect 2, and it's a very exponential growth. And I tried to incorporate that sort of research into the game. And I had, people that we knew zombified and people that we didn't like, especially zombified or killed in rather a gruesome manner. And it ended up, from what I remember, that they got out of town. One of the guys who was in like a village, or lived in a village not too far away, and there's like a weird sort of farm pub in this village, and they sort of decided they were going to convert that into their base of operations, and they spent ages sort of doing it up and scrounging for resources, and then we sort of like had them go off and rescue family members and stuff. It wasn't a great game. We were playing it more for shits and giggles. And I don't think it was something that was really geared towards long-term play. I don't. I really wish now I've started talking about it a bit more. I could remember more of what happened and how it sort of like how the system plays. I can't even remember whether I think it was a D10 system, something like that. D10 plus modifiers, target numbers. I forget exactly. And it was all right, but we never picked it up again, and I ended up selling the game off a few years back. It sat gathering dust. It was a nice try. I don't think it worked very well. But moving to game two, we were big zombie fans in the OOs. We would play all manner of zombie board games, zombie role-playing games. There were some online games, and we'd go see zombie movies and all this sort of stuff. Not so much now, but you know. And another game that we played, and I spoke about this during this year's RPG Day discussions, is a game called All Flesh Must Be Eaten. I don't think it's published anymore. It's published by, I think it was Eden Studios. Yeah, Eden Studios, who I don't think are with us anymore. And it was, well, a generic zombie role-playing game that you could either create characters that you wanted or you could create yourselves. And obviously the guys like to play themselves, so that tended to be what happened. It was a very tongue-in-cheek game, though. It didn't take itself very seriously. Some of the things that sort of like you could do were a bit weird. I've spoken in one of the other videos about how in one game that we played, one of the guys, I had him meet his little like 13-year-old brother who'd been zombified, and because it's an open-ended dice system, and if you roll high enough, you roll again and add it, and you can keep. And he kept doing this. The dice were like on fire, and he pulled off this ridiculously high sort of. He was basically playing to kick his little brother and his little zombie little brother, kick him away, and he ended up just sort of like doing this massive amount of damage. And it's just like, well, you kick his head off and it goes flying over the wall and smash. You know, it don't know. It's just a bit weird in how it, you know, very odd how you could pull stuff off like that. Another game I remember them holding off a little old granny zombie using a mop from a cleaning cupboard, and if you wanted a game that didn't take itself too seriously with it, then this was a good choice. Again, I don't really remember how the system worked. I think it was like a D6 system. Again, you would have a stat and you would have a relevant skill, and you added them together to the dice roll and had to, you know, a certain number or so, or 2d6 maybe, something like that. And I remember the book came with these weird archetypes. So you want to play it, you can just play. Here are the characters. And the game allowed you to do one of three things. Everybody had to have the same sort of character. You were either a norm, which was you and I, so you weren't special, you didn't have a lot of stats, you didn't have a lot of skills, you were going to die, but it's fine. You had another, I think it was called a survivor, which meant you got slightly higher stats, you got more skill points. It meant that you were more likely to be able to do things and thus survive longer. We always preferred to play survivor. You know, the horror element of being nibbled to death by zombies was great, but you want to have a bit of fun in a role-playing game. And the other one, I can't remember what it called them, but basically you could have, say, something like a priest who could keep the dead at bay, or, you know, they had sort of like miracles. You might play a psychic who had escaped from a government lab, and things like this. But I remember some of the archetypes were kind of odd. You had like police officer and you had sort of like criminal, but then you had things like soccer mom, and video store employee, and they'd come with a set of stats and the skills, and then some random like equipment, you know. And I remember the video store employee had like something like all his Doctor Who VHS videotapes, because the survivors would thank him one day or something like that. The other thing that All Flesh did was gives you potential worlds and different types of zombies. the potential worlds could be just like your basic, you know, a meteorite has fallen on the edge of town, the radiation is what's converting people into zombies. You had one where chemicals leaked into the soil had sort of like created killer plants, and the dead weren't necessarily undead, they were just animated by plants seeking revenge. You had one where aliens were animating the dead to sort of like take over the earth. You had a really cool one called Dead Earth 1000, which was kind of a take on the Y2K bug, but instead of it being now, it was set in the year 999. It was a medieval thing, and the idea was that when the clock ticked over to the year 1000, the dead started to get up, and you know, and they did a series of books, and one of them was Worlds of the Dead, I think it was called, which gave you another like 10 of these potential game worlds. You had another one which was like, I think they did 2, which were different types of zombies or animated corpses from around the world. So you could cherry pick the sort of things you wanted for your game. They did some setting books which were just random. They did some cool ones. I think there was like a World War One, sort of like in the trenches type thing, as I recall. But they also did one, they did like a fantasy one, it was like Dungeons and Zombies. And then they did a WWF style wrestling campaign setting where zombies weren't sort of like a world taking over apocalypse type thing, but they occurred, and people used to put them in wrestling rings and wrestle them. And your campaign was about you being wrestlers in a zombie, you know, a minor zombie apocalypse. It was very silly in a way, but it was quite cool. And when we needed a zombie fix, All Flesh Must Be Eaten was the game that we would go for. It quite often got pulled out at Halloween as well. So yeah, that's my 2 zombie games, 2 in 1 as it were, for Halloween 2023. Let me know if you ever played either of these games. Correct me if I got anything wrong. It's been a long time since I played these. And let me know about your campaigns, your games, your characters down in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the comments and in the next video. Take care, good gaming.